On this episode of 10-8, we will discuss the narcotics epidemic and how it impacts our community and our families. 10-8 starts right now. Welcome to 10-8, your inside view of the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. I'm your host, Lieutenant Chris Ciccio. Narcotics use continues to be an epidemic in our society and in the nation. Last year in St. Lucie County alone, 53 people died from narcotics-related overdoses. Here to talk to us about today is Lieutenant Brian Hester from the Special Investigations Unit. Lieutenant, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for the Sheriff's Office.
Well, Chris, I've been with the Sheriff's Office, I'm actually working on my 21st year in law enforcement now. I am the unit commander for the Special Investigations Unit, and within the Special Investigations Unit I have the narcotics unit for the Sheriff's Office, as well as the auto theft unit, the warrants unit, and the agriculture unit. And within those I have 3 sergeants that supervise those units on a daily basis.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Well, it's busy.
What is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now?
Right now, with regards to narcotics in St. Lucie County, we're starting to see an increase in opioid overdoses, and obviously related to those overdoses come deaths, and with that, we're starting to see labeling as an epidemic and as a crisis, and it is a crisis. Anytime that we have people dying from the use of illegal drugs, then we start taking a harder look at what's going on in our community with those narcotics. So I would say from our standpoint, the opioid crisis is really the biggest thing on our doorstep right now.
Now, I remember having worked in narcotics, and we're going back about 20 years ago, that the majority of the assets of the Sheriff's Office were placed in the enforcement efforts. And that has changed somewhat over the last several years, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, we still continue. We have to enforce, and we have to be out there on the streets. But we're also, from a narcotics unit standpoint, we're taking proactive approaches as well too. We're taking intelligence gathering approaches, and trying to get in front and trying to analyze. Just as in the intelligence-led policing world, we're trying to start to predict things and track them and have hard data for us as a unit to take and maybe get ahead of this problem.
And in the midst of that, we also have some recovery efforts, along with Rescue, the Narcan program that we have here at the Sheriff's Office as well, don't we?
We do. Each deputy in the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office is assigned Narcan, unless they're in an administrative position. But most deputies have Narcan in their vehicles or on their person. And now, as a Sheriff's Office, we're responding to overdoses, whereas in the past, deputies would respond to an overdose, but they couldn't do anything. They had to wait on rescue. Many times our deputies get there before fire rescue does, and now they're able to administer Narcan, and Narcan is a substance that counteracts the opioid overdose. Yeah. So we're saving lives, and we've seen many uses of the Narcan, and we've seen lives saved from the use of Narcan. However, we're starting to run out of Narcan now as well. So,
now, what was the funding source behind the Narcan? Was that a grant?
There was a grant. We were actually one of a couple of agencies that were given this grant as a test, and very easy training for our deputies. It's a nasal inhalant, so it's sprayed in the nasal cavity, and the reaction or the results from the use of the Narcan can be from anywhere from 20 seconds to 2 minutes. And our deputies are having to use more than one dose of Narcan on some of these patients or some of these subjects that are overdosing. And it depends on what they're overdosing on as well. If there's fentanyl involved or any other synthetic opioids, more Narcan's needed.
And I think it's important also with the training that you guys provided to us with the Narcan that when it is administered, although it may keep that person from dying right away, they need to seek medical attention immediately because there is a window of opportunity that Narcan does wear off after a while, correct?
That's correct. And we are not there to offset rescue or to stop that process. Rescue still responds. They're still transported to the ER. They still go to the hospital. And in many cases, more Narcan or Naloxone is given to them once they're in rescue's care and custody or at the hospital as well.
Right. Now, you had some interesting statistics that we were talking about beforehand, and I mentioned at the beginning that we had 53 narcotics overdose related deaths within St. Lucie County last year, and we have surpassed that so far this year.
So far this year, we're at 56 overdoses. That's not deaths, that's overdose cases in the unincorporated St. Lucie County. Now, that's not counting Fort Pierce, our municipality, or Port St. Lucie, the municipality. That is only the unincorporated that we've responded to 56 overdose calls this year. Of those 56, 37 of them have been since July 1st.
Wow.
Out of those 37 since July 1st, 22 have been fentanyl and heroin related.
And that problem just continues to get worse and worse as time moves forward.
It is, and it's starting to become more prevalent. One of the things we've seen, and I think as well, we have more data on this problem now because we're starting to, as I was talking to you about intelligence gathering, if we have an overdose, not only do deputies respond, but our unit responds to detectives to every overdose call that our deputies respond to. In doing so, we're not going after that person who's overdosed. We're not pursuing charges on them. We're actually there to try to gather intelligence. Many times people have those life and death experiences, and they've just overdosed on a narcotic that they've bought from someone that's almost killed them. Well, they're much more likely to give us a little information. And our goal is not the user, the person who's addicted, because that's a physical and mental sickness. We want the people that are bringing those drugs into St. Lucie County and that are selling those drugs. And that's our goal, is to stop that inflow.
Well, and that's what I meant earlier when we're talking about 20 years ago, it was just strictly enforcement, make arrest, make arrest. Now you're using intelligence. You're trying to find out the root source behind the user who's actually overdosed, and it's digging deeper into the problem. And when we come back in the next segment, you'd be interested to know that we've actually got some prevention programs here at the Sheriff's Office, which I'm sure you already know about, that we're doing at the school level to educate people about these drugs and about the dangers of them and about the reality, especially with death as one of those realities that come from it. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to meet with Sergio Lopez, one of our school resource deputies, and Erin Guercio, who is a parent who had lost her child due to a narcotics-related overdose. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this problem and what we're doing here at the Sheriff's Office to be able to stem it off and work into the future for a brighter future for St. Lucie County residents. Don't go away. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to 10-8. In this segment, we're going to continue our discussion about narcotics overdoses and the problems that we are having in St. Lucie County. Our next guests are Deputy Sergio Lopez from the School Resource Unit and Erin Guercio, who are participants in our NOPE program. Deputy Lopez, Ms. Guercio, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Deputy Lopez, you are currently assigned to School Resource, correct?
Correct. I've worked for the Sheriff's Office for the last 7 years. I've been in law enforcement for 11 years now. For the last 3 years, I've been in the School Resource Unit.
And you, in the process of working in School Resource, you became involved in the NOPE program. Tell us a little bit about that.
The NOPE program, basically NOPE, it's a nonprofit organization that was founded in Palm Beach County. They deliver presentations, they do vigils, and our message is try to stop the drug use. I mean, our teens today, they don't know the effects of narcotics use. Like you mentioned earlier in the show, 53 people in St. Lucie County alone died from drug overdose in 2015. This year, the numbers are surpassing that.
Now, what does NOPE mean?
NOPE stands for Narcotic Overdose Prevention and Education. And education is the biggest part of the program, where we deliver a presentation. It's an hour-long presentation. We talk about the drugs and the effects that they have. We provide stories about kids that had died using drugs. Some of them starting earlier in middle school, some of them as an adult. But some of those that started in middle school doing it and survived for many years, they're combining drugs and they don't know the effects. They think that because they mixed it once, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And then one day it doesn't work out, or they mix them with alcohol. So NOPE is trying to deliver information to these kids so that they make good decisions. Within the presentation, you also have parents that come and talk to about their personal stories. They've lost a child to a drug overdose, and that's the part that really makes it really emotional.
Yeah.
And delivers the message. Sometimes kids don't want to look at someone in uniform telling them a story. They want to hear from somebody who's lived it. And in Erin's case, she delivers that story.
Now, what is the target audience age group wise for the NOPE program?
In St. Lucie County and across Florida, actually, we have 7 counties in the state of Florida that are doing NOPE, and about 4 in Pennsylvania. We deliver in Florida, we do middle school, so we try to do 7th, 8th graders, and then high school, we do anywhere from 9th grade all the way through 12th grade. The middle school presentation, it's a little bit less graphic than the high school presentation, just because we want to make sure that we're still sending the message, but we don't want to scare kids too much with graphic pictures. But for the high school students, we want to make sure that we drill it hard and as crude as it can be.
Yeah, well, and life is cruel.
Absolutely.
I mean, and when something like this happens, it has a very deep impact. The damage radius is major. What does a NOPE presentation look like? Kind of walk us through, if you will, for the sake of our viewers, what a NOPE presentation looks like.
I'm the moderator for the presentation. I introduce myself. I provide some statistics in our county. Then I talk about one of our cases and present that story. Then we have a law enforcement officer, another deputy that talks about drugs and the effects that they have. And within the presentation, then towards the end, I ask questions about how many people know or are involved or are currently using drugs, and I have all the kids stand up. And as you can see, then, or if you know someone, stand up. If you don't, sit down. And then they sit down. Then I ask them again, well, of those of you who know or are currently using drugs, how many of you have gone out there and tried to get help or told someone to get help? And then you see half or 75% of those kids sit down. So you just left up with maybe 20 kids out of a group of 200-300.
And what I like about that is you keep those kids standing that have actually told somebody, and you celebrate that they are heroes.
Yes, they need to know that they're heroes, that they're making a difference. And that one phone call to 911, that standing up for that person can save a life. And sometimes that's all it takes, one person caring and doing something for them.
And I think among their peers, to recognize and celebrate the fact that they made a heroic decision by telling somebody to try to get help for that individual, I think that sends a very profound message to them that this is the right thing and we want to celebrate you doing the right thing. Not for the sake of the individual being arrested, because as we learned from Lieutenant Hester, the focus isn't on arresting the individual user who has been involved in an overdose. The focus is trying to dig deeper into this problem so that we can actually get to the root of it. And that's something that you actually are supporting by having those heroes stand up and celebrating them. Because I remember there was a big round of applause for all of those heroes.
During the presentation, we also talk about that, the part where you were talking about enforcement. We talk about the Good Samaritan 911 law, so we let them know that they can call 911 and they're not going to be in trouble for calling 911. Their friend's not going to be in trouble if they overdose. We're trying to make sure we save that life, and the message is be the hero and tell someone. Just that one time can kill. So whatever we can do, that's what we want to send that message so that they know what to do when they're facing that situation.
And we're trying to prevent tragedies at that point.
Correct.
And we've got partnerships with parents who have lost loved ones, such as yourself, that you use to drive that point home. And what has been the impact that you've seen on these students as a result of these programs?
I received an email 2 days ago from one of my teachers at Treasure Coast High School. And he said that his class, it's an English class and debate, all the kids after the presentation, they were talking about it, and they had a really good discussion and how impactful it was for them to hear about what we're doing, and they were sharing how much they care and what they would do if they were in that situation. So it was really nice to see that 2 days ago, I also received an envelope, a folder with letters that were written to Erin after she did one of our presentations at Port St. Lucie High. So we know that the message is getting out there, and I'm positive that at least if we save one life, we've done our job.
Well, thank you for being a hero yourself and bringing this program to our community schools. When we return, we will be speaking directly with Miss Erin Guercio about her tragedy and what she endured in losing her daughter, Sierra Bradley, last year to a narcotics overdose. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be a very touching segment. Don't go away. Welcome back to 10-8. We have been talking about the NOPE program, the Narcotics Overdose Prevention and Education program that our School Resource Deputy Unit brings to our community schools. And in doing that, Deputy Sergio Lopez has been involved in actually bringing that to our schools. Now, you also work with parents in the course of doing that, and that is through our presentations, that's how you met Erin.
Correct. The core program, though the program of NOPE, it's the parents. That's where we really drill the message. I met Erin last year during a presentation at Renaissance Charter School. It was a parent presentation. We did a presentation during the day for the students, and then those parents were invited at night, and Erin was one of our guests, and she saw the presentation. And even though it's a different presentation that we deliver from the parents to the kids, it's a little bit more informative to the parents. We give them tips and more ideas of how to detect their drug use. We show them what kind of pills they're going to be looking for, and in that presentation after that, we spoke a little bit about the program, and she showed interest, and she wanted to be part of our program because she suffered through a loss to a drug overdose.
Well, Erin, I want to thank you for being here today. I know you have a tragic and a touching story that you wanted to share with us, and this is the same story that you share with the students when you meet with them. So thank you for coming today. Tell us a little about what you've been through.
Well, last year, my 20-year-old daughter, in March of 2015, went off to a concert, as 20-year-olds do, in Tallahassee, and she decided to participate with her two friends in taking a drug called Molly. And she was not really educated in what drug overdose could happen to her, and she was very naive, and she took it. And about an hour after she took Molly, she collapsed on a floor at a venue she was at, and she went into cardiac arrest and had a seizure, from what I understand, and she lost consciousness and never woke up.
That is tragic, and I can't imagine what you've gone through. How long after this had happened did you become aware that narcotics were even involved?
Well, I got a knock at my door at 4:30 in the morning by two St. Lucie County deputies that came to deliver the news to myself and my family. And when I opened the door and they presented to me that my daughter had passed away, they told me what had happened. And I was shocked because I wasn't even aware of what Molly was, and I wasn't aware of what would prompt her to even want to take this drug. And she was not a drug addict. She had a job. She loved her family. She was a normal girl, and there was no signs that she was doing anything abnormal that I should be concerned about, except for the minor things that, kids do leading up to their adulthood. And I wasn't overly concerned. And when he told me what she had done, it was quite shocking. And I really had to research and find out exactly what this narcotic was and what it had done to her, because I was very unaware and uneducated. And it's opened my eyes to a whole new world.
Yeah. So something that you didn't anticipate at all with her behavior at home and with her behavior with you, and I imagine it was very devastating, not only to hear of the news of her passing, but also why.
Yes. like I said, you know, all kids go through a transition of life when they're going into adulthood, and they do minor things that you think, you know, you don't overthink. You think, okay, you know, she's trying to learn and guide her way through life and making mistakes, and we just have to help her and guide her. And I didn't really think much of the minor things. And then when this happened, I actually had to second guess, were those clues, were those things I should have been more aware of? Not coming from a background of knowing and being educated in narcotics, I wasn't always aware of what the clues might be, and I just didn't really look for them. Now looking back, I know that maybe some of those were clues, and maybe she was experimenting and, you know, living a different life than maybe I knew of.
Yeah.
And it really hit hard and hit home when I got that knock on the door. It was devastating.
Yeah. Now, what aimed you towards the NOPE program and getting in front of middle school and high school kids to share this story? That's got to take some tremendous strength to be able to do that.
Yeah, it is hard, but it's very important to me. I still have teenagers at home, and I have a lot of teenagers that I know personally, and when I heard about the NOPE program and when I went to one of their presentations and saw what their message was, it just touched my heart and made me think that I needed to get the message across, and on a personal standpoint, let these kids know what the after effects of losing a child and the way that I lost her, what it felt like. And I try my best to exude that emotion, to let them know that this is what a mother goes through. This is what is left behind and what can happen to the loved ones. And, you know, I want you to be aware that we suffer every day.
Yeah. And after having seen your presentation at one of the high schools, I can tell you that in the audience, you can hear a pin drop when you tell your story, and the impact on some of the kids. I've actually watched kids leave the room crying. Don't know what the reasons are behind it, but you can only imagine that they either know somebody who is currently using drugs or have experienced a similar tragedy to what you're talking about today. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, we're able to use Sierra's life and the tragedy that she went through to be able to keep other people from making that same mistake. And that takes a tremendous amount of bravery on your part.
Thank you. That's exactly what my message is.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing this. I know this is hard, and you do this multiple times over in a public format with the Sheriff's Office, and it's your story and the other stories of the other parents just like you that are actually driving this point home, that it's not so much about enforcement, but it's about education and prevention. And if we can get that message out, we're doing a good job. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
We will be right back. Don't go away. On behalf of Sheriff Ken Mascara and the 700 men and women of the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, we thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe.